Hey,
Welcome.
hey,
This is Jess.
that's Amy.
Hey, that's us.
We're Big Love Hug.
We are Big Love Hug. That's our
Woo.
podcast.
Yes.
And, sometimes people ask me, like, what's the purpose of the podcast? And I say to make the world a better place. What do you
Nice.
think?
I think that it's inviting people into conversation. There are
Hmm.
things that we are, been so isolated the past couple of years for one, but even before that, like there's things that we just don't talk about that it's good to get on the table and start conversations and find connections. Like I feel like this is the beginning of a conversation. It's me and you talking, but it's
Yeah.
also an invitation for other people to start talking too.
Yes, if you want to talk to us, go find our Facebook page. It's called Big Love Hug, and everybody's invited into our Big Love Hug. We want to hug you from afar during COVID. But we do want to talk with you. So, yes, if you have any ideas, feelings, thoughts, we'd love to hear them about the content we are talking about or about anything that you think we might be interested in talking about. Today, our plan is to talk about menopause and sex.
Woohoo!
That was highly enthusiastic over there. For me, it has been a woohoo. Like it
Uh-huh.
has really definitely been woohoo. Yeah, but not in the way that would be expected.
What does that mean?
Well, it's not like when I say it's been amazing, it's not that menopause has made the experience of sex better, but it's made my boundaries better. It's made my
Mm.
awareness better. It's made my ability to ask for what I want better. I think that there's something about moving into this crone era, after we're fertile, where it's kind of like no more. No
Mm.
more of the stuff I don't want. No more laying back and taking it. No more doing it for somebody else. Just like no more not speaking up
Yeah.
about the things that hurt. No more not speaking up about touch I don't like. No more suffering through anything. Even if like I have a sexual experience and it's not feeling good and I say this isn't feeling good right now. Let's just cuddle. For me that's a huge win. Like I feel on top of my game because it's more important to me to ask for what I want and to talk about what I don't want and to get what I do want
Hmm.
than to have sex.
Yeah.
I love sex. I love having good sex. I love the all the potentials with it, but more important to me is my truth and the ability to share it. And that's what I've gotten from this time in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And something totally to celebrate. I wonder if is it menopause that got you there? Is it like what's the connection between that and menopause? Like could you have not found that in your 30s or while you were still bleeding?
I
Like
I
what's
hope yes, I hope women can find it in their 30s. And I
right.
think it's just me, that it's just aligned with my trajectory. And I meet a lot of older women who are similar. They just
Hmm.
don't take the bullshit anymore. They just
Right.
aren't laying themselves out on a platter for others. We just kind of stop being so accommodating and giving, and it's just feels like a time for self-care. Like it's an
Hmm.
obvious time where you kind of have to turn inside and care for yourself first.
Hmm.
You've raised your
Interesting.
kids if you had kids, you've had long term relationships maybe or not. And then also this feeling of aging and not leveraging things like beauty anymore. Like that's not the
Hmm.
thing that we're using to get what we want in life. We have to use something else. And for me, that's like my power. I use
Hmm.
my personal strength and my will and my personality and my voice.
Hmm.
And there's a lot to say about menopause and physicality and relationships and sex.
I'm this is great. I love hearing your perspective and I think I'm sort of laying my experience on top of yours with consent.
You can lay your experience on mine. Thank you for asking. Oh, it feels good. Please
Oh,
do
good.
more. We never tried that before.
Well, we did once actually a long time ago.
That was just some little kisses in a tent. off screen. Okay, we should
Okay,
just tell the quick story. This is a part of our history. This is our friendship.
it
Let's
is.
tell everybody, just take a brief moment to say how we met. Come on, this
Okay,
is a good
great.
story.
It's awesome.
So, Jess and I met because my partner at the time had an ex-girlfriend that he really thought I should meet.
That was
And that
me.
was
That's me.
that was Jess. And I kind of knew already that I was going to love her, and there was just something about the way that he talked about her. And we did. We met and we bought plane tickets within a couple of weeks to go to
Hmm.
Hawaii, and we took a journey of our own and kind of became instant best friends. I already felt like your best friend when we had like matching backpacks. We were backpacking in Kauai with our purple backpacks,
Uh-huh.
which I still have mine. And at the time I was feeling very kind of loose and open and free about love and sex and sexuality, and I thought it'd be fun if me and Jess had a little something when we were in Hawaii. So I tried, but she wasn't really that open to it at the time.
I was a little scared. I was scared. But it was very sweet, and that was the beginning. Yes, it was the beginning of a lifelong love and friendship.
Back to our focus. Yes.
Yes. So laying my experience on top of yours consensually, um, that my physical experience with menopause has been very remarkable in that my body made some big changes very quickly. Most notably was like I'm drier, like vaginally, my vagina changed. I can be completely turned on. I can have multiple orgasms and not be juicy at all, like dry, like nothing. It's the weirdest freaking thing, and it's so different than how I know my body to have been up until this time, which was very juicy all the time. So it was really different, and which is fine. I mean, lube and whatever, but like and pain and like intercourse was painful because it dry and kind of it just didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So combining your experience of like I know like knowing who you are, knowing what you want and having good boundaries with the changes in my body is actually like kind of support one another. Like my body is actually saying, uh-uh, not until
Mm-hmm.
you really want it. Like, no more
Yeah.
pretending that you want it, no more pretending that it's okay. Until it's all green lights, it's a red light. Like, that's what I feel like is shifting for me. And it's not always a green light. In fact, maybe less and less. But the, the green lights are better, like because it's really when I want it. There's no pretending. There's no,
Mm.
you really want it, so I'll just do it. Like that was a lot of my sexual experiences, like
Yes.
a lot of years of like, okay, like not that it was bad, not, like not what it wasn't like forced upon me. It wasn't forceful at all, but it was
Mm-hmm.
not a yes on my end. Not, it was like there would be a threshold of like, no, but I know I'll get to a yes. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. But it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a yes right from the start.
Wasn't a fuck yes.
It wasn't a fuck yes. It was a
Yeah.
maybe and then yes.
Well, I guess
But it's such a
so.
different experience to wait for the fuck yes and start there. So I think that I see that too in menopause. It's just
Mm.
like an unwillingness to do something that isn't what I want to do.
What is what you want to do?
I want to have sex when it's a fuck yes. I don't want to
Yeah.
have sex when it's a no or a maybe. I
Yeah.
only want fuck yes.
Yeah. Hooray for that. Amen, sister. Yes. Yes. Only when it's a fuck yes. And I would personally transfer that onto everything, with
Yeah.
sex and everything.
Yeah.
And also, one way to think about a no is that a no is always a yes to something else. Like, I
Mm.
don't want to have you inside me right now, but soft kisses on my yoni or vagina or whatever you like call your lady bits, like might be just right. And I think oral sex, like for me, that's what gets me the juiciest when it's done in a way that I like it. Soft, gentle lips and a soft tongue. No like darting tongue trying to push in and out of me or anything like that. Uh huh.
Which
Go
some
ahead.
people might like. That might be
Some
somebody else's
people,
thing, right?
yes,
Hmm.
yes, exactly. So it's so important to ask for exactly what we want because we might get it. And
the
then it's amazing. Go ahead.
the other thing I was thinking too is that I love what you said, that a no is a yes for something else. I love that. And that yes might be, let's go watch TV, or let's
Mm-hmm.
go for a walk, or let's do something separate, or let's do something totally different. Like that, to shift it from like just have it be a no and that's the end, but
Mm-hmm.
no, and not this is a, but it's a yes to that.
To something else, what you
Yeah,
really want.
right.
Yeah, what you really want.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think especially with women and their bodies and menopause, it's an opportunity for us to rediscover this body now. It's a new
Right.
body. It's true, our hormones change, things change, but we don't dry up. I want to clear up that myth, that yes, maybe our hormones fluctuate, but at any age, I really believe that a woman can get juicy with the right care, with asking for what she wants. Sometimes just the asking for what I want and getting it is a huge turn on for me because I feel my power. And then
Hmm.
suddenly I'm not in that kind of defensive, like, I don't know if I want this, but I'm in a, like, yeah, I just got what I wanted. I'm going to ask for something else.
So here's actually a question I have for our listeners. I was thinking about this because I was really reluctant to do this podcast because I don't feel like I'm an expert on menopause. I'm barely an expert on myself. As you say, I'm rediscovering this body, like I'm learning, but I'm not
Mm,
an expert on menopause. And there are people that have been, studied and worked with and talked with lots of women, so that because there's so many different experiences. So my question to listeners is, if to share your experience, like are do you find that this to be true, like that you have found that it fluctuates, like sometimes you feel drier than others, like are you still able to get juicy when things turn you on, different things that turn you on, is it like the playing field has changed? And I agree with what you've said about that. I hope I agree. Actually, I hope it's true that we don't dry up.
mm,
It's just that
mm-hmm.
there's more care involved, more thoughtfulness involved with
Slower.
how we,
Everything slower.
for some, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe not for others. Like that's the other thing, is like what really
Right.
works for you doesn't work for everybody. So that's
Mm-hmm.
great that you know that. And I think that's actually true for me too. I think certainly slower at first, slower and less. I'm constantly cueing my husband, less, honey,
A good
less,
cue is
less.
try 100 times less. Try 100 times less.
That's
That's a good
good.
cue.
That's
Mm-hmm.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we would like to hear from other people. And Jess and I have been talking about how little community there is
yeah.
among women and menopause. Yet another thing we don't get educated about. My mother didn't talk to me about her menopause. She's gone now, so I'll never know, what it
Hmm.
was really like for her. Or she talked to me about it and I didn't listen because I didn't care at the time.
Right.
But I wish I had.
Yeah.
I do have something I want to share about a woman's anatomy. And this goes for all women. Maybe the younger ones have already turned off of the podcast episode, but but I want to say that this is something I learned in a women's sexual anatomy workshop sometime long ago, which is that the clitoris, so there's a little head of the clitoris that comes out, but it also goes inside the body. So there's another piece of it inside the body. And from that piece inside the body, there are these two arms. And the two arms attach to the uterus. And it keeps the uterus close to the cervix. And so the uterus is held down in its normal unaroused state. Then, when we get aroused, what happens is that those two arms open up and we start to secrete liquid. So we start to get juicy. And that is when we are really ready. They say the uterus goes into flight. The
Hmm.
uterus goes into flight. And then all of a sudden, the vaginal canal is much bigger and ready and open. I don't know about you, but there's times when I can have a man inside me and it's like, you just don't fit. And other times where I'm like, oh, it could be 10 times as big. And that's when the uterus is in flight because
Hmm.
I have
Hmm.
lots of extra space in there and
Hmm.
it's a biological thing that happens and it has stages and you have to get turned on for the uterus to go into flight. You can't just like stimulate the clitoris. You actually have to be like fully turned on.
Mm.
Like, because so we can have clitoral orgasms by just stimulating the clitoris just because it has so many nerve endings there. But to have like a bigger, like a vaginal orgasm or a full body orgasm, and to not create scar tissue. So, the biggest problem with this thing of women having sex before their uterus is in flight is that the vaginal canal is not lubricated naturally and it's not, open enough. And so we get scar tissue inside. And
Mm.
then a lot of women either have pain during sex or they can't feel anything. They have scar tissue inside. And there's ways that you can heal this with castor oil, but you want to look it up. I don't want to start giving my I don't want to do a prescription here, but you do castor oil with wool flannel, organic wool flannel actually outside, exterior, and it seeps in
Hmm.
like in your lower belly, and then I think maybe you could also use it internally, but I'm not
Interesting.
positive
Why
about that.
castor oil? What's castor oil about?
It breaks
Is it
up scar
vitamin?
tissue.
Is
It
vitamin
breaks up
E in it or something?
I just know that it breaks up scar tissue.
Interesting.
That's what
Huh.
I learned. Yeah.
I do want to say something about, I don't know, I'm still learning the terms, but for vagina bearing women, because you
Hmm.
said for women,
Women with vulvas. Yes,
women
women
with
with
vulvas.
vaginas.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
For those folks.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah, we're talking about vaginas and menopause and sex.
Just to clarify, what else has changed for you in your noticing about sex in this time period of your life?
Well, I do know that sometimes I go into like a belief that I'm not interested in sex. And
Mm.
then if I'm with somebody who uh, touches me in the way that I like to be touched, all of a sudden the story changes. So
Mm.
I've kind of made it up that, like, oh, I'm just not that into sex lately, where I think it's a relationship issue more than a biological issue. And so that shows me, that I need to have more communication with my partner and I need to work on it.
I would agree with that. I guess you just said it. Like I was going to ask, like, what would you suggest for someone who's in a monogamous relationship where they're
Hmm.
running that, where that story is running, where they're not interested in sex,
Hmm.
um, to shift the story? Because I think the stories we tell ourselves, we forget that it's a story, so it lives
Hmm.
like the truth, and that's the end of the story.
Right. We believe in it. We believe our
Hmm.
stories.
Right.
Exactly.
Hmm.
I will say that during my years of sexual healing, the most profound touch I received was when a man would just put his hand over my whole vagina and cup like my whole yoni with his hand and just hold it.
Hmm.
And several times that elicited, even just thinking about it
I
now,
can
it
hear it.
elicits like, yeah, tears, like such a gesture of presence and safety and connection without like, can I get in there?
Hmm.
Without like trying to break through or without feeling an agenda in the background, just a presence and just a connection. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful ways to start
Hmm.
a sexual experience is just that presence, just that hand cupping that way or that, however you can do it.
Oh, I love that you get emotional when you talk about it. I had
Yeah.
this conversation the other day with my cousin actually about, and he's a man, about how he's never felt fear physically, and I talked about how I feel fear all the time, and
Yeah.
from an early sexual assault experience, a couple of them early, that fear has lived in me forever, no matter who my partner is. And my husband is like the nicest, sweetest, most caring lover ever. Like he's medicine for me because I can't be, I'm not afraid of him, but the fear still lives. And so he becomes a mirror, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
not him. I know it's not him, but my experience is still fear from my past traumas. And when I imagine asking him to just gentle holding, no agenda, it's like almost an honoring. Like, I'm not taking anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I'm just here with you. I
Yeah.
just, my body softens. I have like a physical response to that, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then 100 times slower, please.
Try 100 times slower. Oh, another good little line is even if you don't like, it's a little bit of a lie, but what you're doing is great, but it would be even better if you could dot dot dot
Okay,
a
how
hundred
could you
times
say that?
slower.
How could you say that without lying? Because I don't want to lie. I don't
Uh-huh.
want to say it's great
Uh-huh.
if it's not great. Like that's like
Right. Yeah.
menopause out with the bullshit.
I know. But it's a thing that like helps men. We're talking about heterosexual sex here. Let's just say helps the toucher not shut down because they
Not
feel
get
like they're doing
defensive.
something
Right,
wrong.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So they're probably, you could think it's great. It's great that you're touching me. It's great that you're attending to me. It's great that you're trying. You could probably kind of fill in the blank with something about it that is great. What you're doing is great.
I can
Except,
imagine saying,
ow!
"Okay, honey, let's try this."
Uh-huh. What we found is that, like, when I would speak up, my partner, just hearing words that were any kind of critical, he would shut down. But so
Hmm.
we've developed a system where I just kind of tap him and maybe whisper and ask for like just a little slower, but touch was really important for him first, that he felt
Hmm.
cared for if I
Hmm.
touched him first, or
Hmm.
even if I took his hand and moved it somewhere else.
Hmm.
um, that was working for him for a while. These things all change.
Right, as we do, as we do.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
had a cool question came up with a friend, and it was, what would you tell all young women that you want them to know? Or what would you tell all young men? So it was like,
Mm.
again, in heterosexual relationships. So he was, the question for him is, what would you want all young women to know? And my question is, what do you want all, like not young like kids, but like up and coming sexual men? The thing that I wanted to say
Hmm.
was, every time you're with a woman, it's the first time with that woman, even if it's the same woman over and over and over. Approach each experience like clean slate, like knowing nothing,
Great one. I love
right?
it. Yes, that's how
Because
I do it. That's where I came to with my sexual experiences, is showing up completely blank. Yeah, like it's the first time ever.
yeah,
Totally.
that's a good one.
Another thing that I got from my grandfather that was really important, he told me, men don't know a single thing about women's bodies. It's a women's job to teach a man how to touch her. So I remember just even being a kid, like junior high, high school, and being touched by people and just thinking that they knew how to touch me because
Hmm.
they were them, not me. Like they
Hmm.
were a person, they must know how to touch me. They must know how to touch all women. But they don't. They need guidance. We need to learn. We need ways to learn these things.
Hmm.
Feedback systems. There's the games that you could play with numbers. I did this for a while in my sexual healing mentorship, where it was a 0 was neutral, a 1 was like, that feels okay, a 2 was like, whoa, that feels amazing, and a 3 was like unheard of. Like you never get to 3 really. But and then anything negative, it means that it hurts or it's uncomfortable and you just want to stay out of the negative at all times. So if that resonates with people, you can play that little numbers game. It's not for in the middle of having sex, it's more of a sexual exploration you do with each other, like one way touch, just to kind of map the area out or try different kinds of touching. Some women might like it on the left side, on the right side, on both sides, circles, little tickles, pull the pubic hair. There's all kinds of things you can do. Learn to ask for what we want. The sooner the better, I think.
Years ago, I hung out with somebody and I loved this idea so much that I actually did it. When he was a single dad, when his daughters were going through puberty, he gave them each a vibrator and said, figure out what you like first before you have a
Mm-hmm.
sexual partner. You got to know what you like in order to communicate it, because they don't, nobody knows what you like but you. And if you don't know what you like, how can you communicate that to your partner? I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, pleasure. We have to learn about pleasure. We have to learn about our bodies. And like you said, even, our bodies change from day to day. So what we
Yeah.
like one day isn't what we like the next day.
Right.
Not
Especially with
always.
menopause, I just feel like it's a lot of new terrain here.
Yeah.
Even for me,
Yeah.
like how I like to touch myself changes.
Yeah.
from a lot.
And another little kind of trick is to breathe while you are in your sexual experience, to consciously breathe, whether it's by
Mm.
yourself or with somebody else, but integrate your experience and circulate your sexual energy out of just being in your pelvis to being in your whole body using your breath.
Mm.
And it can create, and if you can also integrate sound, breath, sound, and movement is kind of the happy triad for having more of a full body sexual experience.
Speaking of movement and noise, I have a
Mm-hmm.
question for you about the freeze response.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And for me, my sexual trauma, I didn't know this terminology actually till recently, that I froze. Like I didn't fight back. I didn't do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of years, I thought like I did something wrong because I did nothing. And then recently realized, oh, what I did actually was freeze, which is a response in and of itself. So when I get triggered, I freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to. I don't want to freeze. I want to step into my power. I want to be present. I want to breathe and move and vocalize and feel powerful, with my partner. And I just get stuck in freeze.
And so, what's your question? How to get out of it?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, what I would do if you were my client is go back to that original experience and have a redo
Mm.
and do it the way, what would you have liked to have done?
Mm.
If you could put yourself back in that situation, what would you have done if you could have done anything?
I
Do you
would have
know?
gotten the hell out.
Uh-huh.
I would have left. I would have
Uh-huh.
I would have pushed back and did what I needed to do to get myself the hell out.
Right. So it would be good to go back actually through the motions and slow motion remember being in that situation and then let yourself actually physically push, punch, whatever you would do.
Mhm.
Maybe open your throat chakra, say the things you would have said, even if it's just a sound or a word, and come up with what you would have done and really let yourself go. But we're not going to do it here on the podcast, but really let yourself go through the experience
Hmm.
of doing it differently until you feel different in your body, until you
Mhm.
feel a shift. And you
Hmm.
can do it several times over and over and over.
Oh, I thought it was going to be something easier.
It is. Is that not easy?
It sounds hard to me. It sounds
Simple.
hard to me.
Really?
Yeah.
What about it sounds hard?
Just going back and revisiting it is not,
Uh,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
right.
knowing that it's to move through it, not to get stuck in it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then
When you feel ready.
so breaking that open and doing having a redo then will translate in my real time life. Then is
It
what you're saying?
may. I mean, there's no promises, but if so much of the trauma keeps going back to that one experience, that then there's something unfinished in that
Mm-hmm.
experience. And if you let yourself complete it back then, it could free up a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing
Yeah.
that you shared with me a while ago is to super freeze. And I don't know
Yes, you
if
can
this right?
cook the
Would that
freeze.
also be
Yeah.
something to explore in this sort of situation?
Yes, yeah. So that's another, it's a technique from process work called cracking out. And it came from the old shamanic tradition of heating up a turtle shell. And it was like one of their divination things that they would do. And they'd heat up a turtle shell, and the way that it would break would somehow, they'd read it, or it would mean something. And the tribe would go that way from the way the turtle shell broke.
Cool.
So, yeah, cracking out is amplifying the freeze. So you freeze and then you freeze more. And again, you'd probably be going, I don't know if you redo the original one or you just kind of let your body freeze and feel that freeze. You could use a different one to not re-traumatize yourself. You could just imagine another situation when you were freezing and freeze more, then freeze 100 times that much, and then freeze 1,000 times that much. And usually, what'll happen when you crack out, and you can do this you can use any of the trauma responses to crack out into a different one.
Mm,
So one of the other trauma responses will come out and it'll be a relief.
mm.
Because it's not like any of them are wrong. They're actually all resources. They're
And the
all
the other trauma
functional.
responses are fight or flight,
Those are the main ones. And then there's
fawn.
appease and fawn. Yeah, fawning and appeasing, I think, are the same thing.
Hmm.
And then there's another one, which is like settle, which is once you've like kind of like worked through your trauma responses, you can develop a kind of a grounding
Mm.
response. I have a fun consent story to tell. I don't know if I told you this, but so me and my partner, we have this weekly date that we call mindful intimacy. And recently we were having our mindful intimacy, and it was like getting to the time that like it was like time to maybe have sex. And my body was not ready for it. He asked me to play with his penis like on my yoni. I had some lubricant on, and I was just kind of like rubbing it around. And I could tell that every time he got to the like entrance, when the penis would like wind up like at my entrance, he would pause, and there was like a little bit of like a testing, a little
Mm-hmm.
pushing in. and
Hey.
and and when it happened, I I would giggle. I giggled and I squirmed away. And then we go back to it, and I'm rubbing him myself with his penis, and then all of a sudden he'd wind up at the entrance again with a little bit of pressure, like testing, testing, and I'd giggle and squirm away. And it wasn't like a consent thing, like I'm not ready right now. Like I didn't have to come up with a sentence or say no or anything. Like my giggle and squirm was my way of stating my boundary, still staying connected to him, still staying in the experience, but I felt totally empowered. And the giggles were coming because I was like, oh my God, look, I can do this. I can totally make this choice and not have sex with him right now. And I could do it this way. Like I could just giggle and squirm. And I just felt very like every time it got funnier and funnier. And I just felt so on top of my game for like not being, for not letting him in. Because often that moment will come, and that's when I've abandoned myself in the past. Is like, he wants it. I can feel he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's figure this out. Like, let's go for it.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Aim.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'll just share one other thing about what I like to do is when he does enter me, because his penis is quite large for me, is that usually I'm not totally 100% ready when he does enter me. So what we do is that he goes in just a little bit. I tell him to pause right there. And then I'll do a little kegel, and we'll both breathe together. And then I'll say, okay, try an inch further, go in a little bit deeper. And then we'll pop, and I'll say, stop. and then the same thing, kegels, breath, just being together, and then a little bit more. And then at some point I'll want him to push all the way in and up against my cervix, and then we'll breathe there for a moment. And often by the time we've gotten to do all that, which takes a few minutes, then I feel really juicy and open. But I have to control the whole entrance thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that is all me, like it's like I'm completely managing the entire experience, and it feels great. It's so new for me. This is like in the last year or so, I think I figured that
Wow.
out.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. It feels so good to tell them what to do. I just
Yeah.
think women getting a little more dominant in bed is probably a pretty good solution.
I
Yeah.
think so. I totally think
Yeah.
so. And that's where I want to get over my freeze because I can see the power on the other side. I
Yeah.
can see what it feels like to have that kind of like, this is what I want. This is how I want you to do it. And everybody's happy. I can
Uh-huh.
see that. What stops me is this like old fear response. I just can't, I can't wait to get on the other side because that's so much fun over there.
Tell me
um,
what about it? Say more.
just
What do
that,
you imagine?
just to be a fuck yes. Just to like know what I want, ask for it and get it and have nothing to put up a wall about. Like no walls.
Yeah.
No walls, nothing to fear because I and which is funny because I know I'm already calling all the shots because I've got the sweetest, kindest, most sensitive, compassionate lover.
Right.
I know that I say A and I get A, and then I say B and I'd get B.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something like I don't feel that freedom yet. I don't feel that
Mm.
power yet. Like
You
I
have it,
just
but you don't feel it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it's there. There's just like this like fog or a wall
Oh.
between me and it.
Oh. That's interesting. If we
Yeah?
were to go into the little process working, we could become the fog or the wall and figure out like what is it doing? Why is it
Right.
keeping Jess from her power over on the other side? Like
Right.
what's
Which is
it
so,
doing?
yeah. I think it thinks it's keeping me safe.
Ah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think it thinks that I need protection still.
Ah.
That's my
But I want to
guess.
be over there. I'm suffering over here. I want to be over there where all the fun is. I'm actually
Hmm.
frozen over here, not actually asking for what I want or getting what I want.
Hmm. I think it needs an update. I think the fog is
Yeah.
outdated.
Yeah.
It's
How
like
could you
fog from
update the
like
fog?
the fog is like up is like from 1986.
That's a pretty old fog.
We need a new weather pattern
Fog,
here.
right. It's like fog cannot be destroyed or created. It just stays for decades.
Yeah, I need an
Yeah,
update.
new
And
weather pattern. What's the
yeah.
new weather pattern? What would you
Clear
like to be
skies,
there?
man. Sunshine and clear skies with like maybe some white
Yeah.
puffy clouds. Like it's okay to have some clouds and some
Uh-huh.
rain. Like just different weather. I think just different weather. You know,
Any other weather.
but no,
Great.
this like, fog layer, the marine layer, it's got to go.
And the marine layer, the fog layer is keeping you from just being able to ask for what you want
Expressing.
from your own clarity, huh?
Yeah,
From
yeah, yep.
expressing. So the
Mhm.
fog's like
Yeah.
affecting your communication.
Mhm. Yeah. And
You want to
freedom. Yeah. Mm.
clear skies in there. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I love visualization because I can see the fog, and if I can see it, I can clear it. Like the
Great.
fog was kind of a fog to me. I didn't even know that that's what it was.
Great.
Yeah,
Yes.
good one.
Yeah. And since your partner, your husband is so solid and reliable and safe, you can probably practice some of these things
Oh
with
yeah.
him.
Hmm.
How would you practice? What would you do? What's like one little thing that you would actually do or say that would be different?
I love what we came up with already. 100 times slower. I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like slowing down, like the cupping my yoni, like cupping my vagina with his hand, and just starting there. Like
Mm-hmm.
just those are great. I'm totally taking those. And then I think just keep listening to my body and having my body tell me when I'm ready, not my head, not what I think it should be doing, not what I think I should be doing. Also, I love what we said earlier. What you said earlier is a no is a yes to something else.
Right. Yeah.
These
And
are all
sometimes
good.
it's like you think you want something, it's like do this, and then right away you're like, oh no, that wasn't it. So
Hmm.
so we have the ability to change, in the middle of an
Hmm.
experience. We might ask for something and not actually like it, and then we can just say, actually, can we try something else? It's not
Hmm.
really feeling right, or try 100 times slower.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Becoming more of who I am. Like this is a menopause thing. Like coming back to
Mm,
like menopause and sex, like it's really just peeling off the layers of who I thought I should be, all the shoulds. The shoulds are just sort
yeah.
of falling off. I feel like that's common thing with menopause and women is like we just, the saying like just give fewer fucks. This is who I am. I'm not going to keep pretending to be something else. And that goes with all of life and with sex.
Yeah. And sex is like so important because it's like our most vulnerable place. We could get pregnant. We could get STIs. We could get monkeypox. It's like
That how you get monkeypox?
I think that's how it started. Yeah, it's like
Oh,
orgies in Europe. That's what I heard today. It's
oh.
from orgies in Europe. But anyway, it's like our most sensitive tissues. It's the most sensitive part of our bodies. We can so easily be hurt there,
Yeah.
and we are repeatedly hurt in those areas. So
And
I think it's
most,
the most important
yeah,
place to be
yes.
really clear about our words and our boundaries.
I was going to say most people with vaginas, I think,
Mm-hmm.
have experienced some kind of hurt in their lives. I think
Yeah.
those that haven't are kind of the outliers. So we have a lot of
Yeah.
healing to do.
Yeah.
It's like now we get to say what we want and what we don't want. I mean, hopefully we all, like not just now, but feeling this time in my life. I'll speak for me because I'm barely an expert on me, as I've said.
Barely an expert.
But really learning to find my voice here with sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
clear skies up ahead. I can see it. I can feel it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Even if you just tried it for 5 minutes, set a timer and said, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to practice asking for exactly what I want. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to give it to me if you're not in consent with it, but I'm going to ask for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes.
It's good. You've got lots of good like games and ideas, and you're like a
You know,
huge toolbox for
I
sexual
think
healing.
I think games are the best. They really are, because one of the problems with sex is that we're adults who are in these sexual bodies who haven't totally taken care of ourselves sexually. So we kind of have to go back to games, to like you were saying, like as though you were a baby, not having sex as a baby, but like, a baby at this,
Right.
and like a good way to learn new
A
things is
new day.
games.
Right.
Yeah.
Exploration.
Sometimes, like, if I really let myself play these games, it's so creative. It can be so simple. One time I was like, would you suck on my like tailbone area? I was just like, never, nobody's ever done that. But suddenly I really wanted to have that sensation, and it like drove me wild,
Wow.
wild. And then I was like, would you kind of like suck on my butt? Like or kiss all over my butt, maybe chew a little bit or something. Like just wanted to feel that, and it's just the things I would never ask for, and probably just wouldn't happen in a normal like sexual engagement. But I just have all this curiosity about these different parts of my body that have symptoms and aren't touched enough, and
Mm. I think about
yeah,
that actually as a massage therapist, that I think I touch people's bodies probably more than their if they have a partner.
yeah,
Like who gets who's what partner spends time rubbing like between people's toes, or like just inner thigh or behind the knee, like all these places that love touch. The body just loves touch, and like it just
yeah,
I love the idea of turning it into a game and being playful and
yeah,
curious.
yeah.
It's really curiosity.
Yes, openness, playfulness, kind of anything
Hmm.
goes with consent.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
staying
good.
clear about that. Oh, I wanted to talk about sexological body work and trauma to our tissues. And that I feel like our genitals hold so much trauma. Like, even just now talking about it, I could feel my yoni is like a little bit like, ah. And I, I really believe that touch is the only healing path to the tissues
Hmm.
themselves. We could talk our way through sex, we could understand ourselves sexually much better, but until those tissues are touched in a way that is the antidote to the pain that happened in the first place. And I think
Mm.
that's why this palming is so deeply powerful for me, because it's the touch that I need, like the thing that's not just going in without asking. I just think that there's worlds of healing that are left to do, especially for women inside our vaginas. And there's just so much that we can do with internal massage, internal mapping, learning to communicate, having lovers, training our lovers, finding sexual healers, starting a sexual healing revolution. I
You're
think it
on
would
it.
stop the wars. Yeah, I think it would
Huh.
stop the wars,
Huh.
If everybody
Interesting.
had access to sexual healing,
Hmm.
they wouldn't need to go out and fight. If, they wouldn't need to hate so much.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, let's try it. Let's find
Yeah, stay tuned.
out. Yeah, it's been good.
It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it, actually.
Me too.
Thank you. Do you have any last words or any takeaways or
Well, I feel like I have some homework, which is exciting. Like to sit
mm,
with the fog and see what the fog's there to, what lessons it has for me and what I can clear,
yeah,
you know.
recognizing when the fog is there and
Hmm. Yeah.
seeing what happens from there. Yeah,
Hmm.
calling it
Yeah.
fog.
Among other, I got a lot of homework actually.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great for me. Thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all need it. And we all need to reorient to pleasure and give ourselves that gift of pleasure.
and talking about it, just bringing this into conversation, and have
Yeah.
other voices, to just share other experiences. I
Yeah.
think it's really good. I think it's really important. Like you said, like I didn't talk about this with my mom. I didn't talk about it with other people, and I feel like we need one another here. We need each
Yeah.
other.
So hopefully we'll hear from other
Yes,
menopausal women
please.
about their sexual experiences.
Yeah, please. The more the
Before
merrier.
before Jess was asking me, what's after menopause? Is there life after menopause, or is menopause the end? And we were talking about mena done or mena stop or mena
Well, because you
over.
were saying like sex after menopause. I was like, well,
Right.
what do you mean after menopause? Like we're going through it, and what point is it after? Is like it's done at some point. Like
Right.
men have been there, done that. I
Mena
don't
all
know.
done.
Men are all done.
Mena dead.
Interesting.
All right. On that note.
All right, Aim.
Bye,
Love.
everybody. We'll see you next time.
I love you.
Mwah. Big
Mwah.
love hug.
Woo!
I mean, now it's really bad. Like, we couldn't record like this. It's like,